our job is to help raise the consciousness of humanity on this planet, and also in doing that, in helping raise the consciousness of humanity so that we can be amongst galactical family that also are waiting for our evolution, okay, to a higher state of perfection. So this information is come by way of our ancestors from the Sirius and Orion star systems known as Pa-Natharu. Okay, and Pa-Natharu have, how can I say, chosen and bred for us a being who's known in this day and time as Yanun in the body of Dr. Malachi Kobinazed York, okay? We all have spiritual incarnations, and we all have spiritual guides going back 4 generations, okay? What's happened to a lot of us is that we have become forgetful. We've had amnesia. And amnesia, if you study what amnesia is, you know, you can regain, you know, from having memory loss, okay, of to who you really are. The best way, analogy that I've found to give is explaining that within amnesia, someone to help somebody remember what they've forgotten is you give them images, you give them stories about their relatives, you give them stories about their past, what they liked, what they ate, what they drank, etc. Because then these will re-establish the brain to start linking in certain memories that have been dormant. So within Wu Sabat, this outformation is designed, Tautat Zamal, is designed to open up those brain centers, okay, and those memories that are in your DNA and reactivate it again so that you can remember who you truly are, not what you've been taught to think you are, okay? So that's what Wu Sabat teach is about, and there's a lot more involved, obviously, and we are about revealing factual information, things that have been hidden away and things that have not been taught in this proper way due to mistranslation, misinformation, and cover-up. So our job is to uncover things and to show people the reality and to find out who they truly are. So with that, I hope if I've set that tone, we have question and answer classes. This is one of them. And if you have any questions on any subject, topic, etc., it may sound very like, you know, big of us to say we can answer anything, but the master teachers have prepared us in a way where we are diligent students and we study. And we're all different levels of students, but we all study because we know that the facts is what will get us through a lot of the things that we as a people are under as a spell, okay? Many people are not aware the spell is called the spell of Leviathan that has been cast on us as a race from the last 6,000 year cycle. The last 6,000 year cycle, know that this planet goes through a 24,000 year completion cycle. And that consists of a moon cycle and a sun cycle. And the moon cycle just literally ended. Well, not literally in the terms of time, but it has ended and it's now time for the sun cycle. When the sun cycle comes in, those children of the sun, i.e. melanated beings, okay, start to become more conscious about their true way of life, their true origin. So as you can see, like during the 60s and 70s, we had like Black Power movements. You had people converting to, you know, Islam, you know, different forms of spirituality, growing their hair natural, etc. It was all part of the awakening process that is designed to happen. So in that, you begin to realize who you are because of the sun cycle and the connection with your relatives and ancestors. What's that, Zama? Your glasses? No worries, man. Here you go. Come. All right. Beautiful. Right, so, yes, please, just fire away. Ask your questions. Feel free. You know, don't be shy. This is the whole reason. This is your opportunity, as I always say, is for you to help break the spell by hold on, you can't hear.
What is the class title today for tonight?
The class title today is open session. It's a question and answer session. So there's
Thank you.
yeah. Okay. So just ask away your questions, because obviously we've had study classes between that, and obviously OSM is there. And that should give you enough ammunition, really, to ask questions for today. But I haven't done a topic class in a while, due to just time and really trying to formulate things together. That's true honesty. So please ask your questions as and when you feel. I'm sure you must have things you dying on your mind that you want to know about. No, nothing at all?
Some questions in the chat.
Oh, okay. Tell tax them all. It says my mic is not on Zoom. This thing is really crazy. I mean, not on Zoom. On Clubhouse. Okay, let me check the chat in Zoom. See what questions we have here. Right. P student teacher Ni. My question is, this is from Sunny Fro. Is there a heavenly mother and father that started or seeded civilization? Okay, so let's just break down this question. So when you're saying heaven, okay, as you've put here, heavenly, a heavenly mother and a heavenly father to us as Sabians would be, the heavenly mother would be Ashashtat, or in the Greek you know her as Isis. And in the heavenly father will be known as Osiris, okay, and the heavenly son will be known as Horus. So there's actually a triad. So these are our heavenly beings that came from the Orion and Sirius star system, okay, to this planet, okay, known as the Enneads. If you go into the historical Greek archaeology, or the Egyptology as they call it, you find that they talk about the Enneads. So the Enneads were actually a group of 9. And this group of 9 is where Ashashtat and the rest of the other Enneads, they were responsible for teaching and civilizing and helping the Nagaru, or the African race, get to a point of prosperity and be in tune with natural nature, and basically have an attunement with the heavenly abode. They've incarnated thousands and thousands of years ago from these star systems. So we are their descendants. We are their children. Okay, so this will be the heavenly father and the heavenly mother and the heavenly son. But the actual heavens themselves is talking about the Orion system. Okay, there's a star system that has many different planets and many different life forms. And this heavenly abode is what you get, this name of Orion and Sirius, which is Sabatat and Sa'at, is where you get the name Sirius and Orion from. Okay, that's the original name was Sabatat and Sa'at. Okay, Sa'at is Orion and Sabatat is Sirius. You can find Sirius mentioned in the hieroglyphs as Soptet. Yeah, that's S-O-P-D-E-T, Soptet. And it shows you like a star, okay? And that star represents the Sirius star system. So that's just something to show you that there's a correlation between us and the heavens. And knowing about ancient Egypt or ancient Tamaray, there was a time period where we built pyramids. And those pyramids, as you know, are known as the Great Pyramid, or the Pyramids of Giza. So those pyramids of Giza, you have the 3 pyramids which are lined up to the Orion star system, okay? Because our ancestors knew that they came from those systems, and when the soul made that transition, it will go back to those heavenly abodes. Because those heavenly abodes are more of a higher frequency, of a higher order. You understand? So your body itself, physically, it has the ability to turn into a craft, and you can actually propel yourself there. Or as a soul being, you can also propel yourself there. But you have to have the right, let's just say, mileage. You know what I mean? So if you've got a car, yeah, and you don't put enough petrol in it, you won't get to your destination. Yeah, you run out of petrol. Just like the soul is like a vehicle. It has a fuel, and the way to fuel it is by the disciplines that you do while you're here on this planet. You know, the eating right, the meditations, the chanting, the language, the connecting with natural nature's forces. These allow you and prepare you, a bit like when a baby is to be born. Yeah, if a mother is in a good mind, in a good state of health, etc., more than likely the baby will be in a good state of health. Okay, so the same thing again goes with the soul. You have to prepare it for that journey, so that it can be born in that world as a healthy being. Otherwise, it won't make the journey. And as baby does, if a baby is not healthy, it may have defects, or it may be a stillborn. You understand? So this is something that you can look at in the form of how the soul needs to be fed the right nutrition. You understand? And that nutrition comes by way of the disciplines that you do while on this planet. You know, giving up certain vices, you know, eating properly, all of the exercising, mental telepathy, all of those things that we take for granted sometimes. But this is the reason why man has been given these, or humanity has been given certain guidelines. You know, so for us as Nagaru or Africans, we were given certain guidelines. And now what happened was we strayed away from those guidelines the last 6,000 years. We were put into a sleep. We fell asleep. That's what I mentioned about the spell of Leviathan. It's a spell of sleep, you know, and many of us are waking up now to that reality, that who they really are, while there's still some that are still asleep. Some are even comatose, to be honest with you. Do you know what I mean? Where it's too late for them because they've so partaken in the devilishment of this planet, and they're giving up their soul. You understand? Because once you start to live in the image and likeness of other than yourself, you give up your soul. You give up your soul to other beings, you know, who can utilize that. So that heavenly abode is literally you making your transition and transformation back to those realms. You understand? I think there's a few more questions on here. I hope that answered your question. And it says here also, the question was, and for that started or seeded civilization. Yeah, so that will be Ashashtat and Asar. That will be their true tones for their names. You know them as Isis and, what's his name? Horus and, what's his name? Got the name of, we'll see. They call him Asaru. That's the name they give, Asaru or Asar. Yeah, but his name is Asar. Okay, and it deals. The reason why it's pronounced like that is because the word means to extract. Yeah, the reason why it's called it means to extract is because if you know the stories, okay, and the symbolism behind Asar, he was killed, okay, by his brother, okay, and that when he was killed by his brother, his son Haru took that essence of him and became in the image and likeness of his father. Okay, so Asar is talking about the squeezing of the soul. When the body dies, the soul leaves by something called the vagus nerve. Right. Yeah, and because it's an extraction, and it gets squeezed through that vagus nerve and then leaves the body. Mm-hmm. Yes, and the symbol that was used by that was the stork, no, the heron. Okay, a bird-like creature that was symbolic of transmigration, because that's what certain birds do. They transmigrate to other places. So we used a stork or the heron to represent that. You see what I'm saying? So many of our stories dealt with symbolism, but in symbolism that linked with nature. So for instance, if you have for Atum, yeah, Atum is where, if you hear it closely, you hear the word atom. Yeah? Yeah. So that Atum was the first begotten. And that first begotten, they said the first form of life or the first element was hydrogen, which was the first atomic number. You see what I'm saying? And from that first atomic number, you have all the others that followed it. So this was symbolic of us when from Atum came Nun and Nuntat. Ha and Hatat, it came Kak and Kaktat. And on and on and on until you gave birth to Horus. So when you look at the Enneads, you're looking at the Enneads and you're looking at, if you know anything about chemicals and elements, the chemical hydrogen, okay, they bond. And these bonding is where you see nun and nun tat. You mean positive and negative. Yeah, the electrons and protons that are circling around it. So our stories about creation and life was given in the form of symbolism. You understand? So atum represents the sun, for instance. Yeah, and you see the word atum ray. The rays of the sun. But the first begotten of the dead would have been atum ray. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, and when we're saying dead, we're talking about the dead mentally. So he's the first begotten. He's the one that woke up first, as it were. You understand? Okay. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. We have.
Is it right if I can ask a question?
Yeah, yeah. Or off the back of that.
Yeah, yeah. You said something about Asar. Does that have anything to do with the Islamic prayer, Asar, when it's I think it's the third prayer? Does that have
It might do. I think the master teacher, when we were going through the School of Islam, did break it down, but I'll be guessing unless I go back to the listening of that actual lecture. But it has a link because the language Arabic it comes from those ancient languages.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? So there's certain words that you're going to hear in our language or our tone. They're going to say, oh, that sounds like Arabic. Do you see what I'm saying? It's because Arabic came from our language. You understand? So yeah, Usir, Asar, Asr, it has a connection. It has a connection, yeah. All right. So it says here, so the Ron Rael asks, who cast the spell? Okay, so this spell was cast in various degrees, various sections. It wasn't just like one spell that's cast and just once. It was in different successions of time. So the very first spell of Leviathan was cast by a being known as Anzu or Zuen. Okay, Zuen was able to get certain tablets known as the tablets of destiny. Okay, and within these tablets of destiny, these tablets were like technological, magical formulas. Okay, known as the Me stones. If you when you research about the sacred wisdom of Tahuti, there were certain stones, certain magical stones that were in a disc form. And these stones held information about the stars, the planets, the origin of this universe. Everything was recorded on these particular stones. They were like a disc, okay, that had certain data on them. So this data, one of the stones that was stolen and altered was the stone of the tablets of destiny. Okay, so these tablets of destiny, it was, how can I say, converted and changed in a way for the children of the Natharu, okay, to forget who they were. In fact, not even just the Natharu, just human beings, because it's all about the control. So that was part of the spell. The other part of the spell is also due to the fact that when the Adamites were created or made, they were also placed under a spell, and their barary gland was also maimed. There's a gland that is in your hippocampus area of your brain, which was known as the barary gland. And this gland, when it was maimed, it allowed the spell to be enforced as well. Then that's just a second aspect. Then the other aspect is that there was certain, how can I say, in this day and time you call them witches and warlocks, okay? But there were certain children of the disagreeable Elohim. I'm not sure where you are, Theron, Raels, in the teachings, but know that there was the children of the Anunnaki. If you're not familiar with those terms, I'm gonna have to probably just backstep a bit. But there was basically certain demigods or fallen angels that came to this realm, this planet. These were children of the Anunnaki, okay? There was two brothers. One was called Enlil and one was called Enki. And between the two brothers, the one known as Enlil, he utilized certain of his children to help cast the spell on the Nagaru race and also on the rest of the Adamite race. So the spell was cast in the atmosphere, and it was also cast by way of the sex forces. You see, if you look at the word six and sex, they're actually the same actual word, because when you understand something about vowels are interchangeable. So when you're looking at the word six and you're looking at the word sex, it's actually referring to the same thing. So this sex force and this spirit force was a part of the spell where we no longer knew about self and kind, and we started to forget who we were. Okay, that is part of the enforcing of this spell of Leviathan. When you look at the word Leviathan, you're looking at the word Levi, which was the word, when you take it into the original language, you're looking at the word Lawi. Okay, and if you look at the two words are Lawi Thanan or Lawi Athan, and that Athan is dealing with the word sin. So it's the laws of sin. Okay, and these laws of sin is an actual propagated in the atmosphere and in the blood. Okay, because people have mixed in. Different species and different races have mixed in. So it's affected the minds of humanity. Okay, in many ways than we realize. And then the spell gets enforced every so often by way of, now we got commercials, we've got TV, we've got other things that people call programs. Okay, if you look at the word, you're being programmed. Program. And then in the English, you had the word M-E at the end. Is originally spelled was program and with an E. So you're saying program me. You understand? So you're being programmed by way of television, advertisements, music, etc. all the time. These lights that are coming from TV screens and monitors and things like that before you go to bed, all of these have an impact on your memory, because these are lights that are going into your mind's eye and they're affecting the way you think and behave without even you realizing it. It's altering your state of mind. So these programs and these spells, the spell is still being done on us by way of language, movies, Hollywood, you name it. So you have to keep yourself constantly in a particular state and frequency and vibration by learning your language, studying, protecting your mind, because in order to know and navigate through this realm, you have to protect your mind and help others to raise themselves to protect their minds and their being. Okay, so that's what this spell is, and it's still kind of like the residue of it is still happening to a lot of us. We're like like I said, in a coma state or in amnesia. Some of us have got amnesia where we have forgotten who we are. Okay, and we can fall back under the spell because the spell is still being propagated in many different ways, and people are not realizing that they keep perpetuating the same thing. When you have like something you need to do and you need to change, like a habit, and instead of breaking that habit, you perpetuate that habit, or if you, for instance, let's give, for instance, Christmas. Yeah, Christmas is a form of a spell, because we keep every year perpetuating that spell to our children. We want our children to feel good and have a lovely time, etc. So we perpetuate that same spell. We just came out from Valentine's Day. Most of us, some of us are still have broken that spell, but most of us are still perpetuating that spell, where we still buying loved one or presents for a loved one on that day. Do you get what I'm saying? So these are the different types of spells that still go on today, where we have to break away from that. And this is part of why we are teaching what we teach. Okay? So the spell's still here in many different forms. Reyes Sananda says, okay, my question is, Moisa, please, is how come Enki and Enlil are part of the 23 elders? How did they get in that order? Okay, so these are the 24 elders. Okay, I see you. Right, these are the 24 elders, and because they sit in a council of 24, it doesn't mean because they're in that seat that it is different to how we are here. Yeah, you can have like in the UN, for instance. In the UN, you've got many different leaders. Not all of them agree together, in many different things. They may do things in their own country, which another country may disagree with, but still they sit in the UN and still make decisions. Do you get what I'm saying? So in that sense, these Anunnaki, some of them are still agreeable based on what they need to do in that council. And so the Council of 24 has been set up, okay, for them to make decisions about the fate of this planet and many other worlds. And this is what it's based on. It's not based on human, feelings or what humans want. It's what's best for the rest of the universe and the galaxy and the solar system, etc. So this is why these beings sit on those councils, okay? I hope that makes sense. And they got into those orders because of who they are as supreme beings. Don't think that because they're Anunnaki, there's factions of them. Not all of them are, how can I say, disagreeable or evil. Some of them are agreeable. Some of, like Enki, for instance, how he fought against his brother, okay, to protect the Pataites. So there's beings that are agreeable depending on what they require or need at that particular time. So it's bigger than this. It's much bigger than what we realize. It's not just a human thing. It's, entities or higher beings have responsibility over this planet. And ultimately, the highest of them are the Natharu, the 9. They're the ones that actually govern this realm or this solar system. It's actually these are just a council that sit and make certain decisions, but they're not the ultimate council. Okay, that's the Council of 9. Question from Bishop Costa Fontaine Mamani. How was the universe created and who created it? Okay, the universe was grown. Okay, the universe was grown. Rahubat. Yeah, the universe is a grown entity, and it's not just one universe. There are many multiverses. Okay, these multiverses were grown out of what we refer to as ether. Okay, by way of our ancestors. Our ancestors actually grew this in their mental bodies, or their energy bodies grew the universes. What do I mean by that? Our supreme beings, they don't have a physical body. They incarnate into physical bodies, or they can materialize in physical bodies, but ultimately they actually mind. They're supreme beings. They've raised themselves to a point where they don't need a physical body. They're mental. So these mental beings were responsible for actually growing the universes by putting certain formulas into play. And those formulas, by way of ether, produced your elements today that we know as the hydrogen, the helium, etc. On this side, this is the physical particles that we know as hydrogen and helium. But scientists using the atomic smasher, etc., and atomic electron, they know that there's subatomic particles. You see what I'm saying? So those subatomic particles is where you're going into the etheric realm, the abode of what they call supremeness, or the abode of nothing. The reason why they say nothing is because their scientists at that time could not detect with their instruments that there was another realm. So they call it nothingness. You understand? But when you actually look at it, there's the word itself, you're looking at no, as in, when you're saying the word, writing an abbreviation for number, you have N-O and a dot. So that would be nothing, no thing. But it's actually saying number of a thing. That number of a thing means that it's formless, hasn't come into form yet. but it still exists.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So those existences are realities that scientists were not aware of when they done had their electron microscope, etc., until they're able to break down the atom. And then they realize that, hold on, there's subatomic particles, there's quarks, there's Z's, there's this, there's that, there's anti-quark and down quark, and you see what I'm saying? They realize that there's actually more in that realm than they realize. What religion will call the spirit realm. You understand? But it's actually dealing with just subatomic particles, which are forms of energy which came from ether. Yeah, and ether is the substance that pervades the whole universe. It's what gives life, you see what I'm saying, to the universes. Yeah, so our ancestors utilized the formulas because they're etheric beings, and those formulas produced planets because they grew them literally. They grew the sun. The sun is actually a form of an etheric being. You know, it's alive. It had, it thinks. It's just that in our mental state, we can't perceive that the sun is alive. You understand? We just see it as something that gives us warmth, but it actually thinks, and it gives off energy, and it gives off information to its children, who are in the form of the melanite race and other races who have melanin. They actually can receive information from the sun because it's a living entity. Yeah, that's just one of the suns. So there's many universes, what we refer to as omniverse, yeah, or multiverses. Yeah, and they tried to show you that in Doctor Strange, the movie in Marvel. They show you that there's a multiverse. Yeah, exactly. So as things are happening in all different parts, and in different dimensions as well, so you can actually travel and meet yourself in another dimension doing something similar. The master actually explained that as you sit here now, you have a counterpart in another dimension that you share dreams with. And sometimes those dreams, you can wake up you can be in their dream, and you can wake up, you don't remember how, what happened, or you could be in a dream, for instance, then you may have lost something, you lost your way, and you can't find where you're going anymore. You kind of like, you have to get there, but you just can't find how to get there. It's because you're sharing that dream with your counterpart. So there's certain things, and he explained that your counterpart is everything opposite to you. So if you're right-handed, they'll be left-handed. They speak in the reverse to you. And these other things that realities like, and they showed you in the movie again. They do a lot of movies to show you what can or is potentially happening in other realms. I think the movie is called Upside Down. Okay, it's about two people that fell in love, but one lived in a different alternate reality to them, and somehow they were able to come together. But it's all, how they do it. They sugarcoat it with romance and stuff like that. But the actual essence is, I think it's called Upside Down, but somebody might post it in there and correct me. Feel free to ask if there's anything else that you want to ask or build on that at all. Because it is a big build, but I hope that answered your question, Bishop. How was the universe created and who created it? Again, if I'm going too fast, because I can't talk fast sometimes, please ask me to slow down. Yeah, greetings.
Greetings, Rahubat, Mr. Rahubat Samal.
Rahubat.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
It's regarding the mind scroll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all beings, body, mind, brain, nervous system, and the fact that fear is false evidence.
Mm-hmm.
How I need your support in order to understand why fear affects our nervous system, even when we know that it's not real.
Okay. Good question. So your nervous system obviously is a series of circuitry, okay? And, oh, what's happening here? Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Zoom, I've lost Clubhouse again. So this series of networks of which is known as your nervous system, that's connected to your essence, your spirit, and your soul. So when your mind has received certain impressions, let's just say during the course of the day, and you are not able to dump that information by way of your dreams, and you have stress that is coupled with whatever's going on in your day-to-day life, those aspects of your experiences can be magnified. And because it's magnified, it causes a reaction in the body chemistry. And it happening to you is because it puts a stress, and that stress it puts affects your nervous system, which is interpreted as the fight or flight syndrome, because your adrenaline kicks in and it causes you to have those reactions, okay? So this is taking place because the real you is not the body. The body is a vehicle. However, it receives impressions from your spirit and your soul aspect of you. So when you travel in your dreams or you have projections in your dreams, because the central nervous system is connected and you're connected to your spirit and soul, having nightmares or having certain, negative impact on your being makes a manifestation in your actual physical body. Your physical body reacts because your central nervous system is a series of networks of electricity. And this is what's taking place. And then what happens is, because that electricity is connected to the portion of your brain known as the amygdala, and certain portion of your brain which is responsible for these emotional reactions, is why you then end up having a cold sweat when you wake up. Sometimes you be cold, you sweat in your dream, or you wake up and you feel that was so real. Is because the spiritual impression that's taking place, is happening in that reality, and your body reacts to it. Is that what you were asking about, or is there something else?
It's actually something else. However, I sweat quite often when dreaming, but I know that we don't talk about personal experiences. So going back to what you were saying is, you mentioned that you said that dump information away.
Yeah, because
my dreams or our dreams, I didn't get the context of dumping information through the dreams on your explanation.
Okay, so your dreams sometimes, okay, is your body's way of removing waste. Do you see what I'm saying? From your subconscious. So it's like when you have a computer, right? And throughout the day, as you're using a computer, it builds up something called cache. Yeah, these different little components of information is stored in your hard drive. Are you following?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So when that hard drive has information that's not required, okay, you have to purge it. So the purging of those unnecessary information is what you call dreams, because some dreams are just not necessary for your memory bank. Yeah, it can cause an overload, or it can cause a crash in your body system. Does that make sense?
100%. And what is the cause of the crash?
The cause of the crash is because, just like, again, looking at the data can be corrupted. Just like you may have information that you can receive in your subconscious mind that can rewrite certain, let's just say, certain belief systems that you may have. or certain ideas that you may have that may be causing you to have a decision about life. And it can disrupt certain feelings, certain emotions that you have stored in your subconscious, which manifest in your conscious being. Hence, that is part of that fear, because the fear aspect is that it's in your subconscious. But there's certain programs that can be stored there that can affect or trigger those fear centers based on what you're going through during the day, or what stresses that you may encounter regarding family, life, etc. It's all stored in the cells of your body, you see. And these storage of cells in your body, there has to be a release point. And that release point is what comes up sometimes in dreams, or sometimes in just natural day-to-day life, where you may find yourself, your shoulders are very tight, or you may be just clenching your teeth, where you're gritting your teeth, or all these physical reactions that you may be having, okay, is based off of sometimes things that have taken place in your subconscious mind because of the programming or the data that has accumulated but hasn't been purged. Are you following?
Yes, I'm following them up. And on the physical reactions, you elaborated quite well, and very well. And my experience is more related with like anxiety. I don't know if it's butterflies or
Yeah.
excitement, but I feel it. And how to, not even more like on distinguishing, because it feels more like a glitch. You certainly have heard about, I'll make it simple, but about like fake it until you make it.
Okay.
And on the process of faking until you make it, and you know that it's not real, the fear, it's a false evidence, but it feels like a glitch between the reality that you are creating and where you are coming from, because that shaking and vibration process feels like an adjustment of what is unfamiliar and what you're not used to simultaneously. But at the same time, you know it's not real.
Yeah. So
And
yeah, go
and
on.
to
Yeah.
correlate to what you were saying about dumping the information to the dreams, how can we find a clear pathway in
Okay.
order to deal with the ability to dump the information to the dreams and sweating, and also the quantum theory on the anxiety and the clinch between what you want to accomplish related to purpose and goals and what you're coming from, how to deal with that smoothly within the
Yeah.
culture.
That's wow. That's a loaded gun question. That is. It will take a while. But essentially, okay, it's you got to negate it. Have you had the opportunity? Okay, you have to negate certain things that you have grown up believing in or knowing, because some of these things are from childhood or from youth. You understand? Which still forms a part of you, part of your being. So there's a saying, me, myself, and I. So there's the me, which you see yourself as, yeah, myself, which other people see you. Sorry, the other way around. Me is what the other people see. Myself is how you see yourself. And then the I is the true you. You understand? So you have to learn to differentiate. And one of the things that we teach through Wu Sabat is that there are 19 principles of becoming a deity. And one of them is fear nothing. You with me? But in order to get there, you have to learn to do certain things like doing your meditations. Do you know what I mean? Doing a mental exercise of negating these particular worries and fears. When you are starting on this journey, you have to literally program your subconscious mind to the reality that they are deity and that they are in control. Or sorry, you are in control. You are the deity that's in control. And your mind will bend to whatever you wish it to bend to, because your mind is a tool to be used. Now, just like how we explain about fire or different elements, is how you use it. You can either destroy or you can build. So within the mind, because as the master explained in the mind scroll, is that it's an elusive animal, okay? But what you plant in it, do you see what I'm saying, is what you're going to get out. So if you're doing certain mental exercises and mental affirmations, you are now reprogramming your mind and your mind's eye to see yourself doing these things, to see yourself activating these powers, to see yourself trusting your ancestors, knowing that they exist and they're there for you and they guide you each step of the way, and never to doubt that you are a supreme being. Because part of that too is that we question our own abilities. We question what we're actually capable of doing. And it's no fault of our own, because, we're in a world where there's, we got relatives, we got partners, we got children, etc. And you have to be this upstanding being around all of them. You get what I'm saying? And just that's not even going in towards your working environment, who you interact with, etc. You have to literally become the real you. The real self has to come forth. Sometimes the real self that doesn't come forth is suppressed because you want to try and please others, or you want to try and keep the peace. Because the real self sometimes can be very honest, and you're like, if I say this or do that, in your mind, it might cause conflict. Do you know what I mean? In my relationship, it might cause conflict in my working environment. So I best not do this. Otherwise, if I do this, then people are not going to accept me for who I am. But that's the total opposite. People will respect you if you're actually more honest and open. Do you get what I'm saying? And this is one of the reasons why the master teacher is not liked either, because he kept it real. Do you see what I'm saying? He wasn't faking the funk on many things. And he's teaching us to also become like that, where we can be honest and true about our feelings, okay, our minds, and then that true self, that etheric being will come forth. Once that true being and etheric being comes forth, then you are in your godship, in your true essence of who you are. And people will have to respect that based on that, because now you can have an interaction and be honest at all times. So there's 19 principles that we have, which you can actually learn from and apply to your life. You know what I mean? Being honest, saying what you say in your mind, accepting things for what they are, whether it's positive or negative, but learn about how it impacts on your life. And that one of them, if it's going to impact you negatively, then you don't feed it. If it's going to impact you positively, you build on it and you thrive off it. Do you see what I'm saying? So you live up to your highest ability. You live up to those higher heights of yourself, because that's what you're transforming into. You know what I mean? You become selfless. You don't dealing with the lower aspect of your selfish energies anymore. You're always thinking about others before yourself. This is the level of where your soul has to rise to. So these are practices that it's not done overnight. It's literally a constant work that has to be put into place until you reach that plateau and then make that transformation. So I hope that helps in my explanation.
That helps a lot. I appreciate a lot. And I got stuck on what you mentioned about never doubt that we are deities. I will take my time to digest it.
Yeah.
And the answer is clear on the being selfless and thinking about others first. And I'll digest both perspectives and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I wish you luck.
No worries, my bro. Anytime, we're always hearing it. So yeah, you can reach out to me. You know that. All right. Going to have a question. Any questions in the class at all? No questions? All right. Question from Akir Tahuti Ranub, if I'm pronouncing that right. I've been doing some research and studying. I'd like to know about the Philosopher's Stone. I've read some of the book of Aquarius that has an anonymous writer. And the way to get the stone is with, is that urine? Is that correct? Am I right reading that right? Urine. And I have done research and even heard Dr. Sebi speak on the benefits of urine therapy. I'll be guessing on that particular aspect. So yeah, that I'm aware of the Philosopher's Stone, but the Book of Aquarius I'm not too familiar with. But the Philosopher's Stone is just a way of describing the tablets of Thoth, and also talking about something that we have in a particular monoatomic element known as mafkhuzat. Okay, this is an actual monoatomic element made up of certain elements like gold, ruthenium, platinum, etc. These, they're known as metals, okay, transition metals. And when these metals are prepared in a particular way, they give the person who takes it or utilizes it certain higher heightened abilities, okay? But that is known as mafkhuzat, which was originally in us as Nagaru. And we still have the ability to activate it once we are taught the secrets, and also activated by way of Partner Bab Yanun, who has the ability to activate it in those who have raised themselves. Okay, so that Philosopher's Stone is referring to an actual element known as monoatomic gold, or another name for it is Philosopher's Stone, or another name for it is Num, or another name for it is bread, okay, sacred bread. So there's different names that they've given to this particular type of, I say, food. Do you know what I mean? They refer to as manna. Okay, it comes in a powdery form, or it was in a liquid form when it was originally in the children of the Natharu. And many other extraterrestrials do have it as well. The Anunnaki have it, and they were able to produce it. And also the Natharu have it in their DNA, in their blood. Okay, so that is literally what they. But I'm not familiar with the Book of Aquarius, and the part about the urine and Dr. Sebi, I'll have to do more research on that and what he talks about, unless you can come on and explain a little bit more. 9 ether beings. Explain the different planes in which we exist and what happens when we transit. Is that saying transition? I guess that's it. And transcend, right? When we transcend. So there are planes of existence. So let me give you an example. Like if you have a television, yeah, you're watching TV, okay? There's different channels, all right? There's the channel 1 may show you just earth-based information, do you know what I mean? Channel 2 might be something regarding water. Channel 3 may be something regarding fire, yeah? And there's different channels, okay? So those existences are all in one place, like the TV. You can switch channels, but it's all in one. You can access it from the television, okay? So if that analogy makes sense, and we can go with that, then know that these different channels or planes of existence, okay, have different vibrational frequencies. And when you raise your mental state and vibration, you're able to see those different channels. You understand? So right now we're on like channel 1, where some of us are vibrating on a very low frequency. So all we can see is the physical aspects of life. Then there's those who become a little bit more conscious and start to realize that, hold on, I'm not just body, I'm also mind and spirit and soul. And that, okay, channel 3, what's channel 3 offering? Well, it's offering how to prepare my spirit and soul so that I can make a transition to the higher abodes. Okay. Hi Liz, if you could mute your mic. Thank you. So in that sense, if you're getting my analogy, is that those planes of existence all are in one place, but based on varying degrees of frequency. Okay? And then what happens is when you shed this physical body, this vehicle, the other parts of you, the other components of you move through these different planes of existence to the highest plane of existence, which we know as the nine etheric plane, or the realm of your ancestors, which is known as the mental plane. So when you move into the mental plane, you no longer need a physical body, or even to the point of soul. You just become mind. You merge with all. You go into the bosom of one. And being in the bosom of one, you become creator. You create now, but in the lower realm. But you can actually now create, universes. And you're not just an individual as a mind, you become a collective. Yeah, you become one being. And that's essentially what we are as Africans. Even though we're all in different skin suits, we're actually just one being. And that one being is connected to an oversoul. And that oversoul is essentially us in different fragmentations having an experience. Do you see what I'm saying? And some of us have forgotten how to go back and become one again. We're one with all. So this is what's taken place regarding the different planes and vibrations and frequencies. And some people get locked up in channel 1. They can't move through to the other channels or the different frequencies. They get literally locked up because they give up a portion of themselves, which we were talking earlier. They give up their soul. And when you give up your soul, you're no longer connected to those other higher planes of existence. And then when you transition, you don't move any further, you get trapped here. Now what happens is what you get trapped here, because it's the lowest form of vibration in that plane of existence, there are beings, okay? So another way of looking at it is you got different radio channels, okay? But within those radio channels, you have 91.1, 91.2, 91.3, etc., etc. And then you have long wave, medium wave, yeah? So if you see the analogy, you see that there's different waves and frequencies and vibrational planes of existence. Some of us can get caught up in the lower realms of vibration. And what happens is we can actually get tormented by beings that already are in those realms. You see what I'm saying? This is what religion calls the hell concept. But it's actually your being, your essence is being tormented to the point where you become like one of them. And then you then torment your relatives to the point where you can use their bodies to cause arguments. You can use their bodies to, especially if you had a vice when you transitioned. Yeah, you can cause those relatives, you can enter them based on their emotions. You can actually walk in them and utilize their bodies because they're part of you. So these are the things that takes place when you transcend. You can transcend and go to the higher realms, or you can descend, and actually be in the realm of negative forces, elemental beings that actually torment your essence, as it were, which in essence also affects your relatives who are in the physical realm. So I hope that makes sense. 9 ether beings. I see a question from Rita. Rita, The mic, if it's open, unmute your mic and ask your question before we go to another. Rita, you there? You have your hands up? Okay, while we're waiting for Rita. Okay, second question, Zamal, is our 9 chakras, could each, sorry?
I thought it was 7 chakras.
Oh, no. There's actually more. There's 2 more. That's what the Hindus talk about. The Hindus or the Dravidians, they have 7 chakras.
Right.
We as Nagaru have 9. So there's 2 that sits above the 7. So from the pineal gland, there's actually 2 more above.
But then crown, but
yeah,
what's above that?
Those are 2 other seats, which the names escape me at the moment. But in there's a book called Natural Ether Energy. Okay. The master explains that there's 2 nines, because the race that we are, we have different levels of
consciousness.
What was that?
You see consciousness?
Yeah, different levels of consciousness and different levels of abilities.
Right.
Yeah, so we're 9 ether beings. So because we're 9 ether beings, we have nine chakras in our system. The Dravidians and others have 7 because they're made up of those energy points. You understand? But those energy points feed from the energy realm or the spirit realm, or what is called the spirit realm, or the life force. The life force feeds into, because these chakras are plugged into certain glands in your body. Yeah, so they plugged into like the
solar plexus.
The solar plexus, the heart, the spleen, what's it called? Got a name for it. The scrotum, yeah, or in the male, or the female would be the vagina. Okay, these are elements that are connected in the form of sockets. So these etheric sockets, what happens is you're fed information from the etheric realm, and also you're fed life force from that etheric realm. You know, for instance, when you get sick, it's because your etheric being or the etheric life force is cut off, or it becomes sluggish. And then you feel it in the form of colds and et cetera, is because you're not getting enough life force and your whole being is not, functioning at its best, or at its optimum. Okay. Liz, are you online now? Do you have a question? Or Rita? Because I can see. Okay. Explain the different planes. I've done that. Before the Anunnaki came, okay, this from okay, Clinton, you got a question? Rahubat.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, Clinton.
Awesome. So I just wanted to ask, how do you master 360 degrees of the non-physical? Because I've heard this, the 720 degrees of mastery of Dr. Malachi York. I'm just curious about the non-physical sort of aspect of that.
Okay, so as you know, Parnabab Yanun is a 720 being. Okay, so yeah, mastering the physical and the spiritual, this is what he's teaching us to do. Okay, first of all, learning to master our bodies, our emotions, okay, our vices, all of these things that we have that stops us from making that transition or transformation. We have to master them, be in control of them, in other words, because that's what a master is. A master is somebody who's in control of their faculties and also of their physical body. So these practices you can find within the books Partner Babi Yanun's put out, but there's certain specific books like the breath book, Patarak, called Concentration and Relaxation. There's also the book he released many years ago called The Mind and Your Potential. Okay, these are books that you can purchase to help you in that transformation to become a 360 degree being, just what I'm saying, which is the balance of 180 and 180, and then 360 of the spiritual, which is again 180 and 180. And then what happens is, as you move on as a being, you merge with other aspects of yourself. Because as I was explaining earlier, you exist in multiple dimensions, okay? And your other self will merge with you once you've elevated to that point. And then that also being, once it raises itself, you then merge again with another aspect of your higher being. So you constantly keep merging until you become a whole being, you know, a 360 or 720 being, in control of your nature, in control of the formulas that you can actually manipulate and control certain aspects of your mind, okay, where you can project yourself into other people's dreams. All these things we have the capability of doing, but it's about the discipline. The most hardest school to ever been in is Earth School, because the Earth is a place where there's a lot of desires. You know, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of many different vices. All of these things makes it one of the hardest schools to master, because you have to be in a very disciplined state. And it doesn't mean removing yourself from everyone and going into a mountain and just humming on, you get what I'm saying? Because sometimes people do that and they don't really find what they're looking for. Yeah. So you have to kind of like realize that it's about building yourself up and creating an environment where you can do that. And this is why, one of the reasons why the master teacher, Parnabab Yanun, was able to purchase a land that was ours in a place called Eatis in Georgia. Okay, 476 acres of land was purchased so that there were certain ceremonial sites, okay, that would help with our transformation. There was also a labyrinth that was built, which was a performance of a ritual called the Magoraj. Okay, the Magoraj was a ritual where you would literally make a journey inward. And that ritual, you start off and you say your prayers to your ancestors. On each corner, you raise yourself, you raise your hands to your ancestors and thank them. You thank the water, the earth, the fire, the elements basically that you're made up of and that is connected to you. These elemental forces. You thank your ancestors who are elemental forces as well. You know, you acknowledge them as being part of you and you being a part of them. So this ritual was actually reenacted on Tamaray, okay, after it had been long dead for over 10,000 years, okay. And this was the master teacher. You can go and do research on the actual Asar ceremony that was reenacted by Dr. Malachi Z. York. You can actually go on YouTube and you see what he was doing in that ritual, okay. So there's certain aspects of our being that we need to start developing. And I was giving an example earlier about a baby, in the mother's womb, is that if the mother is able to feed the baby the right nourishment, okay, and the right nutrition, that baby develops into a more or less healthy child. Likewise, the same thing with your spirit and your soul. If you're able to nourish your soul and your spirit with the right nutrients, you also be able to transform and be born in that spiritual realm. Okay, but those right nutrients and nourishment is based off of what you do here. You know, do you apply certain practices to your life? Are you eating healthily? Do you see what I'm saying? Are you doing mental exercises to develop your mind? You know, these are the different, what is referred to as spiritual practices, okay, to get to know your true self. Because the more you do that, the more of your true essence, the real you, starts to grow and starts to manifest in your life. Because then you are now in alignment with your true frequency of who you are. Then you are linked in with your ancestors. We have certain chants that we do, okay, which are based on certain notes and tones. We have a language that we speak. known as Misbatia, which is the original language that was given to Africans on this planet. Okay, and then obviously it's become diversified, and changed over the years. So the master teacher had to reintroduce us to those languages, and the part of the spell, breaking the spell, and the part of the transformation is in the languages. The language is very important because if you study what language is apart from being a form of communication, it also shapes your reality. Okay, so I made some people in. A second. All right, just admitting some people. I'm sorry. Right. So these are formulas and processes that we need to. How's the word? We need to get into our mind to start practicing and accepting that it's real and it can work for us as a race. Because once we start to practice these things, the forces of nine ether, if you truly, truly are on a journey and want to know who you really are, know that your ancestors, all they've been waiting is for this day and time. Yeah, in the realms, in the different realms that they may exist in. You see what I'm saying? They've been waiting for one of their children to wake up. Because once you wake up, it helps them. And the ones that are on a higher vibrational frequency, they will be able to connect with you in the mental realm. And a lot of our problems can be solved if we're able to accept the reality that we have a link to higher forces, that we are these deities that everybody acknowledges, but we struggle because of the spell that's on us to recognize who we truly are. That we are actually divine beings or deities that are trapped. And the way to remove those confines of those traps is the acceptance of who you are. Another way of putting it, how do you get an alcoholic or drug addict or anybody who's in some kind of situation of a habitual form to break their habit? They first have to admit that there's something wrong. You understand? If you admit that you're an alcoholic, that's the first step to healing, because now you have to put in the work. So Wu Sabat is not a religion as in sense of just coming to a place and you just pray and you pray and then there's many good people, but it's not just about just being a good person. It's also about what you do why you are a good person, in the sense of helping others to transform, helping humanity to transform and raise the consciousness of humanity. Are you going to do that and not be a hindrance, or you're going to be part of the problem, as it were? So yeah, it's these are the different principles and levels that we as Sabians are all working on. Some of us have reached higher parts than others, on their journey, but ultimately we're all gonna come together and work on this and help each other. That's the key. The ultimate thing is we are all that we have got, because we're essentially one race. And once you start to recognize that and put aside all the isms and the schisms and put aside all the different places that we say we come from, people are still, embracing that they're from, either Africa or they're Nigerian and they're this and that. If you eliminate all these terminologies, we're just one race. And you are my brother and I'm your sister, and we're brothers and sisters. We're all related because we all come from the same source. So that's what Wu Sabat is ultimately teaching you. And once we're able to establish that, we can prosper as a race. We get rid of, develop and rid of our egos and suppress or subdue our egos, and be able to work together in building ultimately for our future of our children. If our children are able to live in a world where they can thrive, the way you look at it, look at China and look at Japan. Yeah, when China closed off their borders and they said, you know what, we're going to work on developing our children. Look where China is now, in the form of a global power. Look at Japan, yeah, form of global power, because they said, you know what, we're not going to deal with the Western ideologies and stuff. We're going to concentrate on ourselves, and that's what we need to do as a race. We need to concentrate on ourselves and see each other as brothers and sisters again, you know, because we're ultimately one blood, really, we are. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Right, there's more. Yeah, you have a question, my brother? Yeah.
Can I take the mic?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to go back to what you were saying about the 9 chakras.
Oh, yeah.
So let's just say a 9 ether being activated all of his chakras and he can astral project now. Would he instantly be able to access higher realms straight away, or would he have to still do more work in order to achieve, I guess, 5th dimension, 6th dimension, and whatnot?
Sometimes we do it in our dreams.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you can actually astral project while you're sleeping, but you're just not in control of it. So if you're talking about the controlling aspect where you can actually control and then move your...
Right,
Yeah, so being able to control it. Yes, however, you still need a spiritual master to guide you through the realms. And this is part of why Partner Babylon is here, because as we develop and transform, he will show us, because it's not just about just a straight trajectory into different realms. They're gateways.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And when those gateways, there's a time when they open and close. So if you're a being that has, let's just say you have developed yourself, however, you don't know where the gateways are, because there's certain masters and certain beings that operate on those gateways. And when you get there, you're going to be asked a series of questions. If you don't know those questions, you'll be sent right back. You see what I'm saying? Or you'd have to restart again. So these
When you say
gateways...
restart again, how do you mean, like?
Well, if you're physical...
Yeah.
So if you're reached a certain point in your development, okay, depending on whether you've transitioned. If you've transitioned and then you went through that way, you'll be asked questions. And if you don't pass those questions, or you hadn't completed what you was meant to complete, you'll be sent back.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? So it's part of that as well, that it's not just about you don't just go through and then you're going to go through dimension 1, dimension 2, etc. Like when you're playing Sega or PlayStation. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Even in that, you have a boss, a level boss, isn't it?
That's right.
And that boss level will say to you, you got to fight me, do you get what I'm saying, to move to the next level. You understand? So in that analogy, you can see that you will understand that there's beings on certain gateways and certain paths, and you get tested. And those tests will deem whether you're worthy to go through to the next level. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So this is why the he's a master teacher, because he's not just telling you pray, do you know what I mean, or meditate or fast. That's just one aspect. It's also how much you know about your eyes, how it works. How much you know about your ears, how that works. How much you know about your heart and lungs, how that works. Because knowing these things, what's happening is you're actually creating a memory, okay, of the practical aspects of being able to learn how to breathe properly, learning how to do certain abilities. Why do I say that? Because not all of us are from the same place, in the sense of when we leave this realm, our supreme beings, what they would do is they would take you to certain realms where you originally came from. Before you even go to the higher abodes, you have to also learn about where you came from. So even though we came from Sirius, I said that Sirius had many different planets. So knowing about certain parts of your body will mean that if you go into a water environment, you know how to breathe. if you go into a certain environment that requires you to change your molecular structure, you know how to do that because now you understand about atoms, protons, electrons, and how it works and how you're able to manipulate your DNA. You understand? So it's a lot that as a students we are doing when if you're going to be a diligent student, you have to also understand that there's a process about studying about your body. Because if you're going to turn yourself into a craft, how do you do that? It's not just about like I said, just the chanting. There's more to it because the chanting, you have to connect your heart seat, you have to connect your chakras, you have to then learn about the right tone and vibration. Do you get what I'm saying? You have to learn that certain frequencies would then turn your being into a light. Yeah, and that light then you have to learn when the gateway opens so that you can move through those gateways, not being able to come out the other end all disformed. You understand? So all of these things is what Partner Babylon is raising us to teach us how to be able to learn to teleport, etc., etc. You know, but when sometimes the reason why it holds certain things back is because he gave you don't give a loaded gun to a child, do you? You understand? And there are levels to what he can give us if we don't ask the right questions. We have to ask the right questions, and when we start asking the right questions, then he knows we're ready for the next step. It's just like a child, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay.
So there's no like fast track as someone.
That's what religion says, isn't it? Religion says, be good, live a good life. When you die, you go into heaven, and then you meet God. Do you get what I'm saying? Or you meet your ancestors or your relatives. Yeah, that's the fast track, but that's not a reality. You understand? Yeah, because they don't understand that Earth has gateways, and Earth has portals, and Earth is actually moving into different dimensions. One of the reasons why we're seeing crafts is because the Earth is actually moving into another dimension. We've got a book, Patarak, called Dimensional Shift, where it shows you that the actual frequency of the planet is increasing. Do you see what I'm saying? However, if we don't, as a race, go along with the dimensional shift and the frequencies, we can get trapped. Yeah. You understand? Yeah. So there's a lot going on in what you prepare for. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Yes, Elder.
This is Dudley from Fulham. What can you tell me about
You can hold and take the mic off. Yeah.
Yeah. What can you tell me about the coccyx bone?
The coccyx bone?
Yeah. Because people say
The
that
appendage,
that it's the black box of your body. Like, you know, they say that the marrow in your bone, your soul is in there, yeah? Is that right or wrong?
When you say they, who's they?
Well, Ken, I think I heard him say
Okay.
100%.
All right.
But someone was saying that the coccyx bone holds your soul.
That I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
That and who's when you say somebody was saying.
Well, yeah, I was speaking to some Muslim guys.
Oh, okay. You'd have to ask them how and explain how and how that work.
Yeah.
We're not really in the thing of explaining other people's doctrines or meanings, you see what I'm saying? We teach by way of Wu Sabat, so Wu Sabat doesn't teach that. However, the coccyx bone is an appendage that we don't necessarily have, do you see what I'm saying? It was used for balance originally by certain primates, and also certain species or race on the planet, they predominantly have it when they're born. You understand? Where they have an appendage or like a tail that comes off. Yeah?
Ain't it a shrunken tail?
Yeah, it's a tail. Yeah, it's from their evolutionary stage that they've gone through. Yeah, when they were mixed in with other animals. Okay, that's your Adamite race.
Look,
Okay.
I looked it up on Google as well, and it tells me the same thing. So
It tells you what? That the soul
yeah,
is connected as coccyx.
coccyx, yeah.
What I can say is that you have your kundalini. Do you see what I'm saying? Because you have the lower portion of your chakra, which starts from the base of your spine, yeah, and then it travels all the way up your spinal system. Do you see what I'm saying? Because these are sockets that are connected to your energy, their energy points known as chakras. So the base one is connected to your lower part of you, you know, and that coccyx is part of the tailbone, as it were, that has the nerve endings, which is connected to your central nervous system. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you can raise your energy, which is known as the kundalini. You can actually raise this energy, or we call it sechem in our language, sechem. Yeah. And that sechem, when it's raised, you can open up your third eye and you can open up your crown chakra, which opens up the other two chakras that are above your crown chakra. Does that make sense? Yeah. So those are your chakras, but I'm not familiar with what the Muslims teach about that. Now, in relation to the blood, know that the etheric essence is in your blood. Your blood produces something called ether. Yeah. And that's in your bone marrow. So that bone marrow produces that ether, and that ether is what powers your cells of your body. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Any further questions on that?
Yeah, so what you're saying is the marrow doesn't hold the soul.
No, it holds the ether.
Just that you-
But your whole being has your soul. It's not just you, but the concentrated part is the solar plexus. That's why it's called the solar plexus. If you listen to the word, you see the word soul, S-O-L, but really it's soul. It's just the phonetics that makes you think that one is different to the other. But soul spelled with S-O-L and soul spelled with S-O-U-L is the same thing. So your soul, when you incarnate, the soul, like it settles in that area, the solar plexus. You with me? Yeah. And then it generates ether. It constantly generates ether, and that ether spreads around your body, and it spreads to your brain and gives you consciousness, etc.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah.
You're most welcome. Okay.
What are the other two chakras above the crown chakra?
That hasn't been broken down fully yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it hasn't been broken down fully yet. So I'll be guessing. But again, write that question down, because in fact, if you have any questions like that and it hasn't been explored or explained by any student teacher, it's not because we don't know. So not because, we don't know it, and also we're not going to make it up. However, if you go to UnitedSabiansWorldwide.com, you know, on the page it says Arsh Yanun. You can actually put a question in there, and those questions can be taken to the master teacher.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Someone will go
So,
and visit him.
well, he does get visits. He does get visits. So certain questions, this is how he would know that we're ready for certain levels because of the questions we're asking.
So what have the Hindus mentioned the names of those two chakras above the crown chakra?
They don't know it because they have 7. So most of your general spirituality, they always talk about the 7 because the Caucasian race studied under the Hindus. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they're one and the same, really.
Yeah.
You see? So the esoteric teachings or the spiritual teachings is more a Hindu-based teaching coming from the what is known as Kama Sutra and the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, these are books, and the Upanishads. These are books that are written by the Hindus. And in there, they talk about the chakra system. So when the Europeans lived amongst the Indians and they learned the spiritual practices, they took that and made it like that was the chakra system was only 7 based off of the Hindus. But again, they won't acknowledge or never knew that we have higher other 2 chakras above. Only the master teacher has revealed that.
So is it only 9 ether beings that have
The 9.
extra 2?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's all based on the ether and based on your composition as a being. So each race has a certain level of chakras. Do you see what I'm saying? Or etheric potency. That's why we have 9 ether, as explained before, and we have 6 ether, and then you have 3 ether, which is the ghostational stage. So within these ethers, you have certain chakras that can go to a certain level only. It doesn't go to the full amount as the Garus, Africans.
So even an eight ether being would only have, would they only have seven?
Seven, yeah.
Or they couldn't get the 8?
No, because that's as far as I'm aware, that's what's being taught. He hasn't mentioned that 8 ether beings have 8 chakras. Do you see what I'm saying? I could be wrong, but if there's a book called, what's it called? Not Natural Ether Energy. There's another book talks about the physical ethers. There's an actual fact, master secret called the physical ethers, and in there he explains about the different beings who have the different etheric potencies and their manifestations. So a being that has 6 ether, the manifestation of a 6 ether being is a Dravidian, dark skin, which is I'm saying, straight hair, etc., etc. Then he explains about the Nagaru, and from, like I said, from what we know at the moment, that we have 9 and they have 7. Yeah, but he may touch on it more. Like I said, if we ask the right questions, the information will then be revealed to us.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So. Second question, Zama, is 9 chakras. I still see your hand up, Rita. Do you have a question, Rita?
Yes,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yeah, because we didn't hear last time. Yeah, go on.
I'm so sorry, my microphone settings were off.
Oh, okay.
completely.
That's all right.
Yes, so my question is surrounding the counterparts. I wanted to know, let's see, why do we have counterparts?
Because they're in a dimensional of you. They're a reflection of you.
Okay, so we exist in the same dimension?
You exist in different dimensions, which are within planes. Yeah. So there's different aspects of you in different dimensions. Because you're multiple being. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
being that you're a multiple being, you have various beings or various yous in the universe. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. And
Okay.
we reside on the lowest vibrational at the moment. You see, but
Okay.
we are like a life. What is referred to, the master explained in I think was it the third eye. He explains
Yeah.
that we are life waves. So a life wave is literally a wave of multiple waves in various different frequencies existing in the multiverse. You see? So
Okay.
when you raise yourself or transform yourself, you merge back into another version of yourself. Until you keep going on and on and on. That's why we're giving an example of like if you can give PlayStation games and stuff like that, because you can kind of like relate to how, you know, you move from one level, then you get what I'm saying, you have to beat this person to get to the next level, etc. And I don't know if you remember a movie with Jet Li called The One.
The one, okay.
Yeah. If you watch that movie, it shows you in there that he had different alternate versions of himself in other dimensions. And then he had to defeat them in order to become the one. You understand?
Okay.
So, yeah. No,
I was wondering, like, how can we be purposeful to one another? I mean, so you mentioned we share dreams.
what? You mean your counterpart?
Yes.
Yeah, you purposeful in what way? Like they can give you messages and stuff, you mean?
Exactly. Like, is that yeah? Can we correspond? Can we?
I'll be guessing, but from memory serves me right, your counterpart can leave you a message in your dream. Do you see what I'm saying? But it's up to you to how to learn to interpret those messages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, because I've had dreams where I see myself in them, but understanding that there are counterparts, it's probably my counterpart I'm
Interacting with, that's right, yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Let's see. I wanted to know let's see. Okay, switching gears just a little bit. When I wanted to know if Enki and Enlil, are they part of the mental realm? I mean, are they alive or physical beings?
Well, the remember. Okay, first know that when we say Enki and Enlil, those are
Yes.
Those are seats. Yeah,
Seats.
because remember.
Okay, not names.
Yeah. So his
Okay.
Enki, his real name was Nudimud.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And Enlil's name was Nunamnir.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Understood. Okay.
So that's a seat. That's another thing that we actually
Okay.
don't maybe now explain or expounded on. But these are actually seats. So he acquired that name Enki because he was the master of Ki, Earth. You see what I'm saying? He was given that responsibility to drain certain canals and terraform certain parts of the planet. So he became the master of Ki. Then Enlil was the master of the heavens because he had a station assigned to oversee what his brother was doing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So he was
Yes.
Enlil. Now Nunamnir and Nudimud, these two brothers had many children. Okay, and yes, they do have connection to the mental realm, and they do have certain technological advanced discs that they use to also control certain aspects of humans on the planet. Okay,
Okay.
you can find this in the Akasha records, where the master explains about Enki and Enlil, or in fact, the Enlil utilizing the Akasha records for certain purposes. And I don't know if you were in the class earlier, I was explaining about Zuen and how Zuen was able to steal the tablets of destiny.
Yes, I was in the class.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So
Okay.
these are actually technological discs, and they have certain magical formulas that, if is activated right, they're able to project certain images into the minds of humans on the planet to do what they want them to do. So we know that the Anunnaki, they created a hybrid or a race known as the Adamite race. So the Anunnaki, they project certain images and certain information into the minds of the Adamite race in order to control them. Do you follow? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one aspect, and then also they have to everyone is tapped into the mental realm, the mental reservoir. So they're able to then utilize that technology to be able to tap into the mental reservoir and project certain things into the minds of who they control on the planet.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And so are they physical beings?
They can incarnate into, or they can shapeshift because they have the formula and knowledge of how to be able to transform or shapeshift their bodies. So they're shapeshifters.
I see. And
Yeah.
so they essentially don't die, because I remember in another class that
Yeah.
that death is a disease or an illness.
Exactly. Death is a disease, and they found out the formula of how to cure death. So what these particular faction of extraterrestrials known as the Anunnaki, they had the ability to clone. So Enki could clone X amount of himself and just rehouse his essence into another clone of himself. This is actually depicted in a TV series called Carbon something.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. They try to replicate what's actually happening, or how these extraterrestrials are using their bodies, their clone bodies, to transfer their memories and their essence into that clone body and still continue living. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's a
Yes.
form of eternal life. And then coupled with that, when they incarnate on the planet and live on the planet, they brought with them the evergreen tree, like known as the pine cone. So
Okay,
they
yes.
they knew that the pine cone could be used to create a formula or an elixir which will allow them to live on the planet for an extended time. You see, like up to 1,000 years or whatever the case may be. However,
Uh-huh.
when let's just say, their level of potency starts to deplete, they have to leave and come back because they have to rejuvenate themselves.
Okay.
Understand? So this is part of the mafkuzat, where they can actually drink that to extend their life or their telomeres. And then also they had the ability to leave and come back after they rejuvenated themselves.
I see.
Yeah, so
And
that,
so the pine cones, I mean, I grew up collecting tons of pine cones, and they also remind me of like the pineal gland.
that's right, exactly,
Um,
exactly. That links in the pineal gland, which links into the secretion of the melatonin, and the melatonin, that form of melanin, okay, that melanin which activates certain parts of your, connected to your soul, okay, and your soul which is connected to your etheric being. So these are the sciences that gradually will begin to overstand. And as I stated earlier, once we start asking the right questions, the master will know that our minds are able and capable and ready to receive that information, which will help with our transformation.
okay.
Understand?
All right.
Yeah.
I understand. And then, in our last class with Saken, we touched on the fact that the barotheric gland, that some adults now are receiving it, and babies are being born with the barotheric gland. How are people notified? Like, how do people know that they have it? Is it ceremonial? To me, it's like, if adults now are getting them, are they being taken to a location, or are they
Are you talking
where,
are you talking within our nation, our tribe, or just in general, people in general, you mean?
well, yes, it's a good distinction. I would say people in general, because from what I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, from all etheric beings, like from 6, 7, 8, and of course 9, we have the capacity to, were we all stripped of our barotheric gland, or is it only the 9 ether beings that have the barotheric gland?
No. The Adamites had the barotheric gland. Other
Okay,
other races, even some of the Sans people, the Khoisan, yeah, they
okay,
also have their barotheric gland. You with me? So
yes.
the thing with us is that when we mixed with the Adamites, okay, our one also got maimed through the mixing.
I
because
see it.
because you're dealing with DNA. So when DNA gets scrambled or certain portions of your DNA gets locked or turned off, it doesn't allow you to access certain faculties or certain abilities that you have. So it's the mixture with the Adamites that has maimed us to the point where we have become like them. We're now living in their image and their likeness. So
Okay.
the process is to work our way back to become deities again, and it's not going to happen in this generation. It's going to happen through our children. You see what I'm saying? So as we develop ourselves and improve on our skills and our abilities and the unity and all of these things, know that everything that we do, whether it's agreeable or disagreeable, positive or negative, just what I'm saying, it gets uploaded. Remember we talked about, or if you're familiar with the morphic field,
Uh,
you're familiar with the morphic field?
no, not quite.
Okay, so everyone has not what is known as a field of mental and mind energy known as the morphic field, okay? And it resonates with you as an individual, where you're linked into your mind by way of this morphic field. And everything that you put into this field, your thoughts, your intentions, etc., is implanted or seeded in this morphic field. And this morphic field is like the master explains, like a soup, a resonant soup of energy. Yeah, so it resonates with whatever you're thinking, whatever your thoughts are, it will resonate with that thought. So if you're if you seed positive thoughts, or if you are studying as a diligent student, or if you're doing anything that's helpful and beneficial for your race, that gets uploaded into the morphic field.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a bit like the cloud. Yeah, if you another analogy, yeah, it's like the cloud.
Okay, I've heard of that as called just the field,
Okay.
but not the morphic field.
The
So
reason, yeah,
I totally understand it. Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, so you say it's not going to happen
It's
in our generation.
it's happening as we're talking now. It's happening. Do you see what I'm saying? But it's a gradual. It's just like it's a bit like how nature works. Just like how spring is like in the UK, you can see spring, or even in the US, you can see spring gradually phasing in, because you're seeing the buds of some flowers are opening up. Then there's others that are still dormant, or there's some making a transition into flowering. Yeah, so it's a gradual phasing in, but all of that is taking place. You see what I'm saying? In that field of nature. So likewise, the same thing is happening with us. We are phasing in gradually into our supreme selves. And that comes with learning, applying, resonating, living in accordance with natural nature. Because what starts to happen is, as we do that as an individual, as a group, that also then impacts on the race. So once it impacts on the race, more of us will start to naturally start growing back the barary gland. You see what I'm saying? And then they'll start to naturally do the things that we find amazing, like telepathy. The next generation of children will be born, just like how the Chinese and the Japanese, they found out when they closed off their borders and lived their natural way, that their children started developing certain abilities. You see what I'm saying? Because they were now tuning into that vibration that matches with them.
Yes.
You see, and that's what we need to do.
Well, and yes, and I completely agree. I find personally the challenge is being in this world with so many with the noise.
Yeah.
And really cutting yourself off from that, and being in an atmosphere, because we have so many things to focus on, to live, to work, all of that. And now being able to get to that state, it's, it makes sense. China wasn't fragmented
Exactly.
as, we were. So they have their land.
That's right.
And they can close off the borders, but now we're in the midst of it. And
well, this is why, sorry to cut you, my sister, this is why communities are set up. So this and that's what we're saying, that I know, obviously I've been on OSM and things like that, and there's people who, don't have access to communities immediately in their area. But what essentially you can strive to do, and I'm not going to say it's easy, but once you're able to get the right support, you can start a community in your area. Do you get what I'm saying? With those who are vibrating and resonating on the frequency of Wu Sabat. And then, or link into a community and do your best that you can to support that community. And the more of us that are able to support our communities in the UK, America, wherever in Canada, wherever we are at, that community will grow and expand. And then we are able to then learn to live for and of by each other, by buying for ourselves and doing for self and kind. Do you see what I'm saying? So again, when you look at the transition of this knowledge, the master teacher came to a place called Bushwick Avenue. And you can actually go and get newspaper articles how he was able to clean up Bushwick Avenue because it was infested with drug pushers, prostitutes, etc. He cleaned them up during the School of Islam. And we had a whole area, Bushwick Avenue, that we owned. We owned the buildings. We erected a mosque, a masjid, should I say? Just what I'm saying, where everyone, it was a community. And that community eventually moved up to upstate New York and the Catskills Mountains. And then we moved from there to Eatonton, Georgia, and bought 476 acres of land. So we as a people do have the capabilities to do that if we're able to see the vision of what the master teacher is trying to teach us and show us. Does that make sense? Yeah, I see Brother Saken, maybe. Rahubat, Brother Saken, did you want to add something or?
Towards Zamal, Rahubat.
Rahubat.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of bits to your build. The first one is that children are being born with the barary gland now, our children. And also adults also are getting their barary gland activated. And some don't realize it, but the more you're able to start to recognize that you feel very, very different, can't be around some people, you have certain abilities, you're doing things that, you know, like telepathy, as my brother was saying, and certain things you start to realize. But the thing is that because people don't know it, like it's a gradual process, they start to feel very like weird, and you want to isolate, you want to be around, like you say, a community and start to live and apply also about properly. So it is about communities. Unfortunately, so many people are still under the 60s, the forces, that it's near impossible for them to really just like let it go. So you have to continue to be around like-minded people and work with those that you can work with, unfortunately, because some people are ascending and some are basically descending. So, but you will find the vibration and the resonance that you can vibrate with, and then you just have to like, work with those people. That's
I understand, and that was my question about the barary glands. This is why I love showing up for the classes, because I feel that there's grounding and there's common understanding that we're, speaking of. So, and it makes it a little bit more bearable. There are times where I would just rather be in the spaces by myself for this reason. So
what the master explains, that if you're very sensitive, you see what I'm saying, and you're an empath or something like that, it is good to really be around, a community that can help you develop that and know what it is that is happening to you. You see, so we recognize certain things amongst us, the abilities or things that we have, whether it's special abilities or even just physical abilities, or prowess. Once we're able to recognize these qualities that we have as a race and utilize those skills, do you see what I'm saying, to build that community, to shelter those who are sensitive, especially protect them. Because as the master explained, that they're also gatekeepers that we're also supposed to help develop, and when they come into the community. These gatekeepers, they resonate on a double frequency. And what they're able to do is they're able to actually open up certain gateways and doorways and vortexes, because they can actually resonate on a frequency that opens up vortexes. You see what I'm saying? And in our past, Akhenaten was one of them. Queen Hatshepsut was another. These were gatekeepers that had the ability. So we in our tribe, our nation, because of these teachings, we recognize those things and we do our best to help protect that so that it can be nourished and, do you know what I mean, and grown. So it really is in our best interest, whether you're in the UK, the Caribbean, or wherever. Not saying that you can do it all the time, but do your best to try and reach out. You know, if there are events that are happening and you can only get there once a month, you get what I'm saying? Because I know America's big, and I know the gas mileage. it's not easy. So I know it's very this when we talk about the next state could be like 200 miles away. So I understand the principles of America, being that we've some of us have lived there before. So try and link in as much as you can, and obviously keep asking those questions, and feel, because we want everybody to feel safe, you know what I mean, and also so that they can develop themselves, so that, as I said, really and truly, when things get rough, and they will get rough for us, depending on where Mr. Thorne is going at the moment, you know what I mean, with his destruction and everything. So, if certain things take place, and electricity and all of these things, survival mechanisms have to be put into place. And we have to be in a position where we can actually live for and of by each other, where, we have the right equipment there. We have the necessary things, safety measures in place. So, it's about linking in with your community and helping your community grow. The bookstores must grow. Once the bookstores are growing and the community is growing, we can we can be self-sufficient if we really choose to,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Samal, and thank you, Saken, for the explanation and the conversation surrounding this. Thank you.
Rahubat, Moisar, any other questions? I think there's quite a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to roll on with that. Just go back to it. Right, so we have, my question is, if we came here due to the situation with our planet, how is it fair that we have to be worthy to get back to where we originally came from? Because when the planet, the Sirius, if you're referring to what I think you're referring to, the Sirius star system, okay, the planet Sirius star C, okay, was about to be, what's the word, removed or extinguished, okay? Now, before it was destroyed, the beings that were living on there was also sent certain warnings and to be prepared. Just like here, some of us are not listening, okay? So in the state that we were in on this, in that system, the Sirius C star system, some of us had made that transformation and some of us didn't make the grade. So the ones that didn't make the grade were taken, okay, to the Orion system. And then what took place is that you have to relearn again what you didn't learn. It's like if you were in a school and you had a test and they said to you, you need 80%, 90% to pass so that you can move to the next grade where you don't need a physical body, etc., and you failed the test, would they keep you there or would they allow you to elevate? They'll say, no, you have to start again. If you did a driving test and you didn't pass your test, what do you have to do? You have to retake the test. Yeah? So it's not that it's unfair, it's whether you listened. So was it fair to your parents when you didn't listen to tidy up your room? And they have to always keep doing it. Was it fair to, so you have to kind of like look at things in that kind of reality context, because I'm bringing it down to earth so that you can actually relate. And when you start to relate, some of us are not even conscious that our rooms are untidy. You know, they think our rooms, you know, my room's fine. Look, you know, the socks, yeah, it's good. And your parents are walking like, boy, girl, you need to tidy up your room. Your room smells. You get what I'm saying? You ain't washed up. You're this, you're that. You're dirty. You ain't done the dishes. How many of us have heard that from parents? Yeah, because in our perspective of what life is or how we're living, it's okay. It's normal. Do you see what I'm saying? But somebody from the outside who's looking in can see the mess, can see the state of your mind that you're in. And they say, you need to clean up. Yeah? And this is what it's about. So I'm going to give you a set of instructions. Sometimes our parents will give us like a rota or chores to do. Yeah? And they say, take out the trash, do this, do that, so that you can then get disciplined, so that when you become an adult, you know what to do as an adult and you function better as an adult. So that what can you do next? You then teach your children how to live in accordance with their life and be a part of society that is living and thinking on a certain level. So you have to kind of extend that now to the realms of our ancestors and these supreme beings. They see their children, and their children need to wake up to a certain reality of who they are and what they need to do to discipline themselves in order to make the higher heights of perfection. And it comes with the discipline and perfecting your being. So once you start to perfect your being and living in accordance with the natural laws or rules of nature, which has been prescribed to you right now in the form of the actual facts, the Patarak, the master secrets, what else is there? I say in actual fact, Master Secrets and Patarak, yeah? I think there's a few more others. The Revelation of the Sabians, which is, is another book that's released. There's another one called the 33 Commands of the Sabians. These are actual scrolls and books that have been put together so that we follow them, and in following them to the letter and practicing it, you then become that child that your parents have said, you know what? Yeah, I'm proud of my son or my daughter. When they go to school, they say, oh, your child is well behaved. Do you know what I mean? They do this and it's like, really? That's my, how many people, come on, keep it real. You know what I'm saying? Even in, what do they call it? When, parents' evening. Yeah? Who remembers parents' evening? Where you're sitting there sweating. Like, and then your teacher starts saying, yeah, your son's been this, he's been good and he's been bad. Or they could say, your son don't listen in class, he's always disrupting the class, is this and that, your daughter's not doing their homework, they're not bringing it in. You need to look at it, if you look at it, that kind of thing, you kind of like start to realize, as much as our parents have compassion, because there's, some of us, we did get beats, do you know what I mean? However, there's some of us, we did it out of compassion. And our ancestors, the supreme beings, they're not going to put you into a hellhole, or that's not how they function, if you understand who our ancestors are. But they will discipline you. Do you get what I'm saying? They'll make you go through certain tests. And that's their way of showing to you that, well, if you want to reach these heights, if you want to become this, you have to do this. Do you know what I mean? And you now have to, it's a self-work. You have to progressively increase in developing yourself, your mind, your body, your soul, your this, your that, etc., living in accordance with others. And it forms a part of who you are. And in that, your soul grows. Your etheric being is able to access that mental realm, because your etheric being is connected to the mental realm. And it's connected to vaults of information that is all linked in to your ancestors. So imagine an ancestor that had an experience of how to do certain formulas or gardening or whatever. You could tap into that ancestor. Do you understand? Because now you're linked into them. So all of that is part and parcel of what the master teacher is saying. So being that we were on this planet or this Sirius C star system, we didn't make the grade. And that was why we were sent again to the lowest realm to relearn what we have to learn in order to go back to those higher realms again. Yeah. So that's what's happened. Okay. Now, it says here, the other part is when we are trapped here with no memory. The entrapment really comes down to the spell. Okay, so when the spell came and we accepted that spell and that mental sleep, we kind of like lulled ourselves into an entrapment, because really it's really your mind. If your mind is the trap, yeah, or creates the traps. Like, you know, when you look at a wall and you think, boy, I can't scale that wall, you know, it looks so high, and then you try, no, in fact, let me give you another analogy. Basketball, yeah, you first try that hoop, doesn't work. You try it again, you might get a little bit, you might hit the rim. The more you try, you get better. You understand? So you're now confines of your mind where you thought this was hard has now become easy. Do you know what I mean? Now you've mastered it. So now you move on to the next thing that you have to master. So you master how to, I don't know, meditate. You've mastered how to show love to others, because that's a form of mastery too. You know, where most of us are quite selfish in our dealings. You know, why should I do this for this person, or why am I? I'll give you an example. It's actually quite funny because I do this quite often now. There's times when, you know, my other half would not ask me for anything, okay? Like if I'm making something for us to eat or whatever, she wouldn't say anything. And then there'll be a portion of me that will say, make her something. Now, there's two things I can sway in it. I can say, nah, I'm not going to make it because she's not going to want it. And if I make it, then you start now arguing with yourself. Yeah, who has done that before? They argue with themselves because what you're going to do for somebody else, you don't feel like they deserve it or whatever. But then I make what she wants, and I take her up to her, and she said, oh, thank you. I didn't know that you were going to make that for me. It's like, because, and I said to her, it's because I'm now tapping into my higher self. Because my higher self told me that I should make you something. So then I did it. Do you see what I'm saying?
I was going to say to you, is that argument between your higher self and lower self?
That's right.
Okay.
It's your selfish nature and your soul nature, your higher portion of your being, that you're having. This is your 180. This is your 180 and 180 where you're called positive or negative. You're having a battle, do you get what I'm saying, within your being. And then it's that, which one's are you gonna sway to? Do you get what I'm saying? Which is your will, your ability to choose what path you're gonna take. So that's just a simple example of helping somebody, or even if you see somebody in distress, why should I give him that? Do you know what I mean? Even though you may have it, but he's gonna spend it on drugs or he's gonna spend it on this, why should I give it to them? But you never know. And I always say this this is me personally, what's the harm? You know, because the more you give, the more you receive. That's the principle of the science of the universe. Do you know what I'm saying? As you give, you receive. And I'm not expecting anything, but that's the universe will give what you equal with. Do you know what I'm saying? Once you resonate on that frequency, universe only responds in that frequency. So it's all about you and how you interact with human beings, how you develop your body. Do you get what I'm saying? The nights when you're too tired to do that exercise or do that studying, you push yourself, innit? You have willpower. Do you get what I'm saying? To push yourself to another realm. You know, you can go look at so many different scenarios of people doing things, do you know what I mean, where they're able to lift a car off somebody, etc. They never knew how that strength came from. It's because you do have it. It's just that you haven't tapped into it, you know? It'd be like, Hulk?
Yeah.
You know, you have that Hulk syndrome come through. So yeah, we're trapped because we're not practicing, you see what I'm saying, the things. And the memory aspect is that it's dormant. So when we activate ourselves, we activate those memories that is lying dormant, and then we start to act and achieve the things that we need to achieve. Okay? There's quite a few messages. I don't think I'm going to get through all of them. There's a question. I've watched a video with you and another teacher speaking on your languages, this brother over here, and how it's a vibration. And I felt very connected to that. Should I know the language first? It definitely helps. It definitely helps to know the language, but you only know the language once you start to speak the language. And what the language is designed to do is, if you are a person that studies biology or chemistry, within our being, we have the base pairs of DNA known as the 4 letters, guanine, cytosine, etc. Okay, these are 4 base pairs, and those they call ladders that connect in a certain way, G to C and A to T. Okay, and when these form, they form the rung, which is part of your DNA structure. Okay. Now, those base pairs or those actual particular letters, they also are like musical notes. So part of the language is that those notes are being, let's just say they're being struck in a particular way, in a particular formula. And as you're speaking, you're striking those notes. And what it's doing is recalibrating your actual being. Is recalibrating you to have memories and also grow new neurons in your brain, and it expands your consciousness. Okay, that's what the language is actually doing, and many other things too, because then once you and I are speaking the same language, we're able to understand each other more cohesively, and we could comprehend each other. And most of our battles and arguments that we have and disagreements, if we were speaking our own language, it actually eliminates 80% of our problems. That's what the master teachers explained to us. And you also know this even in relationships. They say that 80% of a relationship is based on communication. So if you're able to communicate with a person, who speaks the same language as you, you're able to vibrate and have the same frequency, and your mind and your brain are on the same resonance. Okay, this is what happens. But we're in somebody else's world, learning somebody else's language and speaking it, and we wonder why we're clashing all the time. It's because we're not speaking in our own tones. We're speaking in somebody else's tones. And I said language defines and shapes your reality. Don't believe me? Just go and study about language and how it impacts on your way you see things. Okay? I've done that one. Moisar, we've been told by the master teacher a speech that Muhammad was basically bringing this science of Reye. Now, from my own research, the first person with the title Ahmed or Muhammad was Abd al-Malik. I've seen student teachers in classes say that Muhammad was initiated into an order and he was told to read tablets. When the Malaika came to him, okay, this is quite a long one. Malaika came to him and I wanted to know which one was the set of tablets he was told to recite from. Was they from Tamaray or tablets from the Anunnaki? I've been told today in class it was neither, that Muhammad was a student of Tammuz and he recited the Torah. I'm confused, and some student teachers are saying tablets and some are saying the Torah. Can we get to the bottom of this, please? It's quite a long one. Zamal, I'm not trying to avoid this, but it's gonna take up more than a 5-minute explanation, or this is gonna take a while to break down and digest. I don't know what brothers or student teachers were saying this, and I'm not gonna try and say they're wrong, but there's a lot to there's a lot to break down, and there's a lot of questions in there, and I have to link things up, etc. And also I have to even confer with certain student teachers who may be more up on certain information than I am. So this is not dismissing it, but that's definitely a question that needs to be explored in more detail. I do apologize for that. But time permitting, due to time constraints, I will not be able to cover that answer. I apologize for that. Bruce, McGriff II or second, isn't this the reason for Egypt's exodus because of the worship of these deities? Sorry, you've lost me. I'll be guessing in what you mean by that, Bruce. Because the exodus was done by the shepherd kings, or the Hikachasut, or another name for them will be the Hebrews. Okay, but that is not something I'm familiar with. There's another long one here as well. Moisar, we have been told, no, that's that same one. So going down. Right. Hello, my name is Sean Njayu Rahubat Sean from Bay Area. I'm looking for guidance with my clairvoyant and telepathic abilities. I have dreams and voices from the future. Thanks and love. I'm not sure where the Bay Area is, but if you're able to find a community, go on to, sorry? I think it's Los Angeles. Los Angeles, yeah? Okay. I'm not too sure, but there's if you go onto our website, UnitedSabiansWorldwide.com, there's a list of bookstores or temples, or what we call sipat. And in those the list there will give you your nearest or closest one. And if that doesn't, if you're not close to any, try and go online and join one of the forums, or you're more than welcome to obviously join and link into one of our forums and ask your questions. But that'll be the best thing. But if you're saying that you're looking for guidance, the books that the master teacher has put out is the guidance. Okay, Partner Babyanun has written many, many, many different books on many different topics and subjects. And I don't know where your journey is at, whether you've just started or anything like that, but you can go online and purchase these books, or go to the nearest store and purchase these books, or sit in the classes and learn through the books, etc. Okay? And I know there's certain sipats or stores that also have like spiritual nights or spiritual classes, etc., that you can join as well. That's been my best bets. But first and foremost, go on to UnitedSabiansWorldwide.com. That's your first point of call. And then look for the list of stores in your nearest area. Okay, I hope that helps.
Correction, I was wrong. It's actually in the state of California.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
It's California.
Okay. Well, wait. Tell it out for that. Nine Ether Beings asked, please explain. Okay, time's up nearly. Yeah. Please
Jamal, sorry, I don't know if you saw my text.
Oh, okay, from okay, hold on a sec.
Well, in the chat, sorry.
In the chat. Oh, there's quite a few. There's about 29 messages. So
There was a hand up from the brother Atum Ray Komet.
okay, I didn't see that hand pop up.
But, yeah,
Okay.
he kept putting his hand up.
Oh, Nadum Atum Ray Komet. Due to
Also, I just wanted to say about the last answer you gave about the orders.
To
The brotherhood and
yeah.
And, people should be working their way into those as well.
Yeah. Most definitely. We have the Nuwapian Man Patarak Guide. Okay, one of the things that Master Teachers emphasized is that as a Nuwapian man or a Sabian who's in this culture, is that you work your way towards being a Nuwapian man into the orders that the Master Teacher has set aside for the men, and also the females have their order as well. Okay, these orders, remember, we're not from here, so these orders were brought to the planet. So when you hear things like Asar, Ha, Ashashtak, etc., they weren't just beings, they were also orders that they belong to. And when you go into these orders, you learn the higher mysteries, but most importantly, the word is order. Yeah? So you don't come with disorder, you come to be in order. Okay, so I just put that out there for those men, Sabian men, Wapian men, or people who are interested in working their way towards being in these orders. And there are certain ancient people that belong to certain orders. If you look at Yeshua belonged to an order of the Essenes. Okay, Muhammad belonged to an order which is the Mutasawwif or the Sufi, okay, which is linked to the Essenes. So there was orders all the time for prophets, messengers, etc. It wasn't just a thing of these are the things, other realities that we haven't explored yet, but there's much more in Wu Sabat. There's so much more. Last question, because it's time, yeah.
Just because since we're talking about...
Just use the mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, since we've been speaking about Anunnaki and supreme beings and whatnot, I'm still concerned about who this demiurge is. I don't know if you can elaborate on what that is. I don't know if the demiurge is Mithras, or is that just an archetype and not something that should be taken literal.
Demiurge?
Demiurge, yeah, apparently that's the one that guards the feminine energy source creation. But then you got the demiurge, which is basically the lion head with the serpent body.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
It's kind of like I think it's a Freemasonic thing.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
No
You might have to show me an image or something. Then,
I can show you.
Yeah. All right. Well, that concludes our class. Again, apologies for the technicals at the beginning. Okay, we'll get that sorted out for next one. Taukum lahe yatoy. That's thank you all for coming and joining our classes. Okay. We urge you to keep joining and inviting others as well. Okay, we urge you to support our bookstores. Okay, because there's many things that we can do. Many hands make light work. So as a community, if we come together, we can build. And the ultimate aim is to have our own place where you can come, you can relax, listen to classes, do your spirituality. Just what I'm saying, we have spiritual classes going on. We have other things going. We have a place for children, an area where they can play, so that it becomes a safe environment and a safe place for us to build and grow as a community. So if you see that kind of vision, help your bookstores. Come and support. Just what I'm saying. Send people online, because there's people waking up. Give them a chance, give them an opportunity to also hear this wonderful news sent by the incarnation in this day and time, the Black Messiah, the living Black Messiah, Dr. Malachi Kobina Z. York, okay? With that, I bid you wonderful evening, wherever you are, or good day, and take care of yourselves. Ashok, see you till next time, and take care. Wadu.